and educate.
Today we're going to be unraveling the English grammar system. We'll be making a tier list of the 12 English tenses. The criteria I've chosen for this purpose are context dependency, so how dependent on the context the tenses are to convey particular meaning, their frequency, so how often they appear in English, and typically if a tense is more frequent, it means that it's more useful and therefore will be higher up on the list. And mind you, there is no corpora that encompasses all of spoken English, so there is no data from which we can infer exactly what the percentages of particular grammar tenses of English are in speech. But we've got some approximations to work with. And I'll be using Krámsky's table here, the reference will be in the description. How complicated the form is, and how irregular the tense itself may be. How easy or difficult it is to teach it in a classroom setting, and how transferable it is to other languages. And here I only can speak and vouch for Polish, so if your mother tongue is different than mine, leave a contribution in the comments down below, comparing your grammar system to English's grammar system as you go through the video with me. Bear in mind that this tier list is completely subjective, it is based on some research, but a lot of it is my own opinion. And first up is present simple. Present simple has two main uses: repeated events and general facts, or also called absolute truths. The first example, I live in London, can be represented as such. The second example describes a law of physics, but we think of it the same way. The third example will be represented a bit differently. I wake up at 6 every day. Fourth example, state verbs. Oh, I realise what I did wrong. I believe in God. I smell mint. Are you making tea? Example 5, we're nearly there. Sports commentary.
City inside to Sergio Busquets. Here's Leo Messi crossing into the Real Madrid half. He finds Paco Alcácer. Ivan Rakitic spreads play to this near side. It's Jordi Alba back into Leo Messi. Poor first touch from Messi, but he makes up for it and finds Sergio Busquets. Now Andres Iniesta. Iniesta thinks about a shot, strikes it with his left foot, and it was blocked by Nacho.
Example 6, storytelling. A man walks into a bar and orders a drink. Then he sits down next to a gentleman. Gives the story more immediacy. Example 7, newspaper headlines. And last but not least, pronouncements.
I declare bankruptcy!
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Because of those vast uses, present simple is the most frequent tense in English. In terms of irregularity and form, it's got the third person S that we all love or hate. Do and does, different spellings, different pronunciation. But because all of these can be treated separately, they're not so difficult to teach, honestly. Present simple is not transferable to Polish in most cases. I read means czytam. I'm reading in the present continuous also means czytam. But I live in London, mieszkam w Londynie. Ice melts at 0 degrees Celsius, lód topnieje, gdy temperatura sięga zera. And because of all that we've discussed so far, present simple goes to the S tier. It's very useful, it's got lots of communicative functions, and it's quite easy to teach, and also quite easy to learn. Don't get me wrong, it does take time, however. Next up, or next stop, is present continuous. Hi.
Hi,
What are you doing?
I'm working right now.
Present continuous describes something temporary which has begun and is not yet finished, or something which is completable and is in the process of being completed. It does not mean something happening right now. That is a very harmful misconception that blocks your understanding of the tense. The fact of it being used with right now, at the moment or at present, has nothing to do with the underlying meaning of the tense. It's just used there for emphasis. This timeline accounts for all the uses of present continuous. The temporariness concept is all in the speaker's mind. Other examples include, I'm working 6 hours this week. I'm meeting Jane tonight. A different use, changing and developing states, but still the same timeline. TikTok is becoming more and more popular with adults. Habitual action, which often indicates irritation. She's always taking my hoodies, but doesn't necessarily have to. He's always buying me flowers. And for state verbs, to emphasize the temporariness of the state. Okay, but at school they taught me that I shouldn't be using state verbs with present continuous. Yeah, that's right, in most cases. But school doesn't tell you everything. You all probably know the most popular slogan in the world. I'm loving it. The frequency of present continuous is surprisingly low in English, yet it's taught at school very early on. It's got some irregularities and patterns, which makes it very difficult for beginners to grasp initially. The tense itself, if taught in isolation, is very difficult to grasp. Comparing the present continuous to other tenses makes it easier to understand it. Present continuous is not transferable into Polish in most cases, for the same reasons as present simple. So after careful consideration, I've decided to put present continuous in tier C. Our next stop is past simple. It's mostly used for completed events, states, or actions. Like, you ruined the party. I saw Harry in the office today. He went to the theatre with Lisa yesterday. With detail about a relatively recent event. When there are no specifics, you'd use the present perfect. I've had my nails done. When there's some detail, we use the past simple. I had my nails done last week. When we want to show the order of events. I came, I saw, I conquered. Past simple can be represented with these two timelines. Past simple is the second most frequent tense in English. It's got irregular verbs, ed verbs with different pronunciations, was and were, and did as the operator. Teaching it is very easy and very predictable. It does take some effort on the student's side though, to actually go and memorize those irregular verbs and notice the patterns. Easily transferable into Polish. I went to the shop and bought butter. Poszedłem do sklepu I kupiłem masło. Past simple's place is in tier A. And next on the list is past continuous. Something began before a particular point in the past and is still in progress at that time. The action may continue after that, but doesn't have to. Compare, I was working day and night to make ends meet, where the person emphasizes that during this period of time, they were working at every moment, day and night. 2. I was working on my computer when there was a power cut, where the red line marks the power going out, and so the end of the action. Past continuous also has the same characteristics when talking about habitual behavior as present continuous, so go refer to that. It's got all the ing irregularities and the be irregularity of was and were. The tense itself is quite easy to teach, but you would rather not teach it in isolation. And the continuity of past continuous in the past is not transferable into Polish. It's also not very frequently used. To me, it belongs alongside present continuous in tier C.
Oh, hello there!
Y'all know who it is.
You already know who it is. It's your boy.
Present perfect. A lot of unhelpful rules or rules of thumb have been created, and a lot of uncertainty has been created around present perfect. It's actually quite ironic that I'm using present perfect to describe present perfect, isn't it? 1. Unfinished period of time. I've had 2 accidents this week, and in the speaker's mind, the week is not over. The eye on the timeline is a reflection of the speaker's perception. I've never been outside Europe. It's an experience he's never had, but might in the future, and this can be represented with the same timeline. Biographical facts about someone. He smoked since he was in the army, which means that he smokes to this day. He never stopped. We don't really expect it to change anytime soon. Open choice. I've used the swimming pool since we moved into the district, which means I've used it a few times, but perhaps I'll do it many more. Recently stopped or completed activity, especially relevant to the present moment. Your dad's rung, and I've done my homework. Though it might be a little bit of a simplification, I haven't found any better way of explaining this to date. The frequency according to the table is not very high, but I can say that this would definitely not hold true if we were to take a bigger sample. Present perfect is one of the most used tenses in English, especially British English. Present perfect's got the irregular third forms and also the have-has depending on the person. The tense itself is extremely difficult to teach because of the amount of context and amount of exposure the students need to get to actually understand how abstract the tense is and how it's used. Present perfect is not transferable to Polish. And for the things we've considered, to me, present perfect belongs in tier B.
You are a bloody wanker!
Future simple, generally unplanned future events and predictions which are not based on past or present evidence. Some uses: spontaneous decisions and offers. I'll do that for you. 2. Guesses based on typical behaviour. Oh, I'm sure she'll be late. 3. Faith about the future. They'll never lose a match with that squad. Now, talking about the future in English is a broad subject. The lines of it are very blurred, so that is a topic for an entirely different video. I would give it more credit than the research does. I believe it's used way more often. In terms of irregularities, the tense is very irregular and therefore user-friendly and beginner-friendly. It uses will for statements, will not or won't for negatives, which is then followed by an infinitive. It's user-friendly, it can easily convey future meaning. Teaching is a walk in the park. It's partially transferable to Polish. Pojadą na zakupy. But why partially? Because I'll do it for you. Zrobię to za ciebie. When? Now or in the future? To me, future simple belongs in tier A, but the exact reasoning behind this choice is too complex to fit in this video. Next on our most wanted list is present perfect continuous. It's got 3 main general uses: to measure the duration so far of a present action, or specify when it began.
Where are we? We've been driving for hours.
What are you doing? I've been waiting for your response for 2 days. To show a connection of what one has been doing and the effect of it now.
Why are you panting?
Because I've been running, dummy. An activity which took place over a period of time and most probably has recently stopped. It's been raining. The data shows that the use of present perfect continuous is rather infrequent, but I would argue, and I'd rather put it on par with present perfect. It gets rid of the third form irregularity because there's always a been and the verb with an ing ending after it. It may seem a bit longish, but it's actually relatively easy to construct compared to the present perfect when you think about not having to remember the third forms of verbs, which are irregular, of course. The tense is not transferable to Polish, so to me, present perfect continuous belongs in tier B. Past perfect, the granddad that loves to tell stories.
There was this German guy by the name of Hans Sticker.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he was chief engineer of...
And it's only really got one use, and it's the sequencing of events to clarify what happened after what. In some cases, it's actually necessary to use the past perfect, whereas in others, it's the speaker's choice. An example where it's necessary: they had finished eating when I got there. An example where it's unnecessary: they finished eating before I got there. Past perfect is generally not used in everyday speech and normal writing, but it's used a lot in fiction and narrative, so there's a big disproportion. Quite regular, you always use had and then the third form of a verb. Once past simple is known to the students, it's easy to teach the past perfect. It used to be transferable to Polish, but now it's not, because Polish used to have something called czas za przeszły, which it has dropped. Past perfect, therefore, to me, belongs in tier D. Past perfect continuous, the grammar of telling stories. It's basically past perfect, but with a focus on duration. She'd been living there for years when they came and took it all away. It's way less frequent than past perfect. It's more regular than past perfect because it drops the third forms in favour of the been and then the verb with the ing. It's generally easy to teach, but it's really hard to show the subtleties of past perfect and past perfect continuous. But also it's not a big deal because the meaning is generally clear from context anyway. And like past perfect, it's not transferable to Polish. And so past perfect continuous belongs in tier D, below past perfect. Future continuous, 2 main uses: future events in progress. Are you coming to the party? Nah, I'll be working then. Asking about someone's intentions. Will you be using your laptop? No, why? Because I have it for an hour, I need to send some emails. Again, data shows it's quite infrequent, but I would put it on par with future simple, maybe a bit less frequent than future simple. It's regular, it's always got will, then it's got be, then a verb with an ing. It's just a bit more complex than future simple because of the continuity, and it's transferable to Polish. Idziesz na imprezę? Nie, będę się uczyć. You come into the party? Nah, I'll be studying. I'd put it in tier B, so let's do that. Future perfect. We travel to the future to see things from that perspective as already completed. They will have gotten married by 30. I'll have left before you get here. The tense is rather rare. The only irregularity of form lies in its third form. Extremely difficult to teach because of how abstract it is, and it's not transferable to Polish. Because of all that, in my humble opinion, it belongs in tier E. And last but not least, future perfect continuous. Basically like future perfect, but we focus on the duration. You'll have been teaching in that school for over 24 years by the time he's 50. Its frequency is not accounted for in the data. Although the structure is long, it's regular. The tense is so abstract that it's not typically taught on courses. The tense is not transferable to Polish. And this means that the future perfect continuous belongs in tier E. So this is what the tier list looks after all of our considerations. Don't forget to leave a comment below about the transferability of the English tenses to your own language. Much obliged if you managed to watch this video till the end. My name's Eric, and this channel is to pique interest and educate.